I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, "You work for me, not inland revenue." I'm like, yeah, man, and my job's to keep you out of the shit with inland revenue.
What's the go-to? What's like the top tier tool list for bookkeepers?
Top tier tool list?
Yeah, what tools should they be using if they want to be the best?
All of them.
All of the
If
tools.
you're the
So
best, you know how to use them all. But what actually are they is the first part of the question. Well, I have an adding machine on my desk still, like a proper adding machine. I could hold it up and show you. But a lot of people, I prefer that because they actually functionally work different than a calculator. And the keys are nice and big and it's really easy to use them quickly. But you should have really good keyboard skills. I mean, that just depends, what you should be able to use whatever the client needs you to use.
So you don't have like a favorite, like if you could come into a business, let's say, and they've got all the money in the world, how would you set up the business to make it your job as easy as possible?
Well, I would use integrated accounting software, whichever one was most appropriate for that client, for that business. Yeah, there's a lot, like everyone has their preferences, and like over my shoulder, that's mine, MoneyWorks. That's my favorite, but I can use them all and I can make them all hum,
MoneyWorks. So is that different from like it's like there's Zero, I guess, and MYOB or whatever it is that
Yeah,
Microsoft one. So MoneyWorks is. Did
it's
you
in the
build?
same, that's the same level. Yeah, although it's far superior.
Yeah. Why? What's your take? I've never heard of MoneyWorks until now. Why is it far superior? Do you have any conflicts of interest that means you're promoting that, like because you own the software or something? Or
No, I don't own it. I am a specialist user of MoneyWorks, but I would say that I am on the executive committee of the New Zealand Bookkeepers Association, or ICNZB, Institute of Certified New Zealand Bookkeepers. So I do have to be a little careful about being agnostic, but I'm allowed as a professional. I have my favorite software, but ultimately I use whatever the client wants. But the reason that MoneyWorks is by far superior, in my opinion, and that's my opinion, is because it does everything. It does serial number tracking, it does barcode tracking, it does stuff that the others cannot do. It's got true department costing. I can run a GST report by department. You can't do that in the other software. Like, it just has more features. So I'm genuinely saying that's superior from a point of view of functionality wise. It actually has more in it, and it's in there already. You pay for it, you get it. You don't have to have an add-on. The one thing it doesn't do is payroll, but it's an accounting software. It's not a payroll software. So it's, yeah.
You got fired up there. Yeah, you're not advocating. So yeah, When was the first moment that you looked into the eyes of MoneyWorks and you're like, you're the one?
I don't think it quite went like that. I mean, like, I've been using MoneyWorks longer than Xero's even been around. So, but so I probably got involved with MoneyWorks when it was version 5, and we're up to version 9 now. And that's like over 20 years ago. One of the things that I love about it is that it's multi-platform. So, like, back in the days when software was desktop, not cloud, right? You could run it on either a Mac or a IBM, whatever, like a PC.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called either.
I'm sure that most people refer to it as an IBM, but anyway, as a PC or a Mac, like with MYB, when it was desktop version, if you wanted to run it on a Mac, you had to have an actual different piece of software, like it was a different piece of software, whereas MoneyWorks could run on either platform just fine. So, there was things like that about it that are just really cool. Yeah. And you can write your own reports. Oh, sorry.
Right now, keep going. You can unleash. I just think we should get some sponsorship deals from them. Not that I'll ever do that. But.
Well, I did ring and ask permission from them before I to see what I was allowed to say and not say and stuff.
So you're on a first name basis. You got a line directly to the MoneyWorks people.
Yeah,
What
but I have a line directly to the partner centre at NYB as well.
what are the perks you get as a bookkeeper when you're in charge of the money of all these companies? Like, do you get some influence with these softwares? Can you negotiate stuff? Do they try and buy you dinner so you use their software?
Okay, you're asking me about the clients or the software companies? so, so do I have any influence over my clients? Of course I do, just inherently. Like you can't, like even if you tried not to, you can't not be, because you're a trusted advisor. Well, advisor is a strong word because, as bookkeepers, we don't give advice per se. But that's around your financial advice. Like we don't give financial advice. We don't, we transact things. Okay. We give reports and let other people interpret what the reports say. For example, if you were strictly being a bookkeeper. But in terms of their choices in their business, of course, we have some influence, and they often ask us, well, in my experience, I'm talking about me and my experience, right? When I say us, I'm talking about bookkeepers, but me, really.
Okay.
We get asked questions like, oh, well, what do you think about this? Or if you had to choose a software, which one would you pick? So I never say, oh, well, you should use this one, right? What I say is, give me a list of what you need from your software and I'll tell you which ones match that. And then you choose based on price or based on, so I try and always make sure that I'm giving them information as opposed to an opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Is
Yeah.
that I never got the whole accounting, like they seem to study for so long. It can't be that hard. Like what is it? What are they actually what's the difference between you and them? Are you kind of like a nurse and
A
doctor
4-year
vibe, or
degree.
a 4 year? Yeah, so you can do, but you can't give them advice? Like what can they do with their degree that you can't or not allowed to?
I mean, you'd have to check with an accountant because I can't say what they did or didn't do or whatever. But on the face of what I do know, they studied tax law. Like I've never done that. They've studied that. Like they know their stuff around tax law, and like they can interpret. So a good accountant, right? This is what I try and share with clients. A good accountant should be able to pick up a set of accounts, read the profit and loss in the balance sheet or the financial statements, as they would be collectively called, and they should be able to tell you a story about the business for that year or the period that they're studying, right? So if they were looking at a 5-year, say a spreadsheet with 5 years worth of data, they should be able to say, well, at the beginning you were doing this and this happened and you had an up and a down here and a da-de-da and your cost of sales went up or it went down or you managed to keep it the same and at the end you're still getting the same return on investment or something, like that. And so a good accountant should be able to tell you what's happening in your business simply by looking at your accounts. And a business owner generally knows what's going on in their business without looking at the numbers, like at the reports. And if the two stories match up, then you know you're on the right track. Like that's a really good place to start.
It's bizarre to me. Like I know there's a list. Like you put your expenses in. You have this much thing, and you can claim tax on this, and you can't claim tax. Like what are they doing for 4 years? Like I get when you go
You
international.
have to ask them, man. I didn't do it. Yeah, I've got
How do
some
you
other
get
things
smart?
that I would say
You go.
normally in private, but but yeah,
Is there a historic war between you two? Like a battle of the bookkeepers and the accountants have just been at it for like years, and they.
I've never experienced anything of the sort. To be fair, in the early days. So like, I mean, and I say the early days, like I've been doing this for 30 odd years, And so back in the days when there wasn't many bookkeepers like me that were independent, or not that I knew of anyway, in the early days, there was definitely a resistance from accountants. Like I had to work really hard to gain their trust. You know, um,
Do they show up beside your house? Like was it like Ubers versus taxis, and they just like badmouth bookkeepers? Was it like an
no,
uprising?
no, 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 not like that. Although, there were in the history of the world, a tabletop bookkeeper was considered to be a very unprofessional person who just like an at-home mum, for example, would be, labelled as being just a tabletop bookkeeper, and, they were never really seen as professional. And so I had to work hard, and also I feel like they thought that maybe I was trying to take over their job, but I'm not an accountant, and I don't want to be. Like, I'm smart enough. If I wanted to be, I could be an accountant. I have no interest in it. I don't want to sit down and analyze reports. Like, no way. It's much more fun finding the last cent and making sure it balances.
Interesting. Is it like, what aren't you allowed to do as a bookkeeper? It sounds like you can't give advice. Like, you're not allowed to say, pick this product. Like insurance advisors, like I'm not an advisor anymore, but an advisor, what they would do is, in order to recommend a product, they need to study to be able to do that. Now, I can't recommend a product. What can't you do? Or
I can do anything. So luckily, luckily or unluckily in New Zealand, we are not restricted. So like anyone in the country can do a tax return with a land revenue here in this country. So actually I can do whatever I want, but I choose not to, like I have a limit. I have a line that I don't cross. And so my accountants that I work with are very respectful of the fact that I respect that line. They're very grateful.
So they're essentially, they're investing all this time and money for street cred, for being the ability to call them an accountant. Well, I'm just baiting you a little bit too.
No, look, you're picking the wrong person, because I can't answer you, man. I'm not an accountant, but I have huge respect for them. Because, well, for a start, they chose to spend heaps of time studying and seeing it through to the end. Like, go them. I just couldn't think of anything worse, but that's me personally. I'm much more of a get on and do shit sort of a person. Not that they aren't either. I'm not saying that at all. They obviously are, because they did a degree, right? So they are a get things done person. But it's just a different part of the process. Like, we do the hands-on day-to-day things and the month-to-month stuff. And accountants, some accountants do that too. They do the whole shebang right from woe to go. And so I guess that's where they might have accounting technicians in their team that do the same sort of thing as us. And maybe that's where, right back in the early days, or 30 odd years ago, they maybe felt that there was some going to be some crossover between what we do and what they do. But we went out to the client, whereas they stayed in their office. So, like nowadays it's much more remote and we hardly ever go to the client's office now. But back then, that's maybe where they felt a little resistant. But so I'm just trying to go back to your question about giving advice. I can give advice if I want to.
Yes, you can do everything the same. You just can't call yourself an accountant.
No, not the same. I can do it. Doesn't mean I would do it the same as them, because I don't have the depth of knowledge. I haven't studied tax law. Like, I'd be able to prepare a tax return, whether I'm getting the best outcome for them or whether I've done everything, like I couldn't, and so hence I don't do it, because, it's not an area I've studied. So, if it's really simple, right, I can do my own income tax return because it's so simple, because there's just me. But if you've got trusts involved, or you've got multiple businesses, or you've got like tiers of GST registrations as well, like you can have a group GST registration, or you used to be able to, I don't even know if you can now. But like, if, so if you've got multiple layers, man, I don't want to touch that. I'll make it all balance and give them nice little reconciliations to make it all, to make sure that it's all tidy, the data. But that's their gig, I don't want to touch that.
Random, eh? I can't be that hard. Like, finance, everyone makes what I used to do hard. Like, I could learn finance in 2 weeks. It's not hard.
So, like, I could fix my car, maybe. It'd probably take me about 2 years. I'd way rather take it to the guy who studied to be a mechanic and let him fix it, eh? Like, stick to your knitting, Like, I could do anything I want, but I just choose to let the people who do it for their job to do it. I'm not going to take my own tooth out. And the butchers can chop up the cow and give me chops, or no, not chop. Do you get chops from a cow? Maybe you do. But like he can make the corned beef. I have no interest in that. So
So
I think they do a fantastic job. And between bookkeepers and accountants, if we can strike up good relationships, which I do, I believe I have good relationships with all of my accountants that I work with. We can help small business or any business in New Zealand succeed. Like that's the goal. Yeah, is if we help them stay healthy, then we stay healthy.
do like accountants bring you in when the person's lazy, is not doing their homework? Like, you know what I mean? Like you get the clients like accounting's like something's not adding up. Can you go in and have a look and do all the work for them? Like,
I
yeah.
have had occasions where an accountant has referred me to a client to assist them to keep on top of their stuff. So when when do they come to us? They come to us when there's a pain point, right? So IRD's kicking the door down because their GST returns are late, or they can't reconcile something. They just can't, figure it out. Or the business owner gets so busy running their business that they don't have time to do their accounts anymore. Like there's got to be a pain point there. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I just need help, and that's when usually that's when they're like, okay, I'm willing to pay someone else to do it, get my weekends back. Or, the most common comment that I have from new clients is, the relief. I'm so relieved. They're just so relieved to not have to do and not have that stress. Like the weight lifts from their shoulders. They even say that.
Do you have the worst is there industries that are the worst at doing their homework? I call it homework because I don't want to do it. I just every month, first Monday of every month is cash flow, so I do all the expenses and work out and blah blah.
Well,
I don't
you've
do
got
projections.
good discipline then if you're doing it regularly. Good, well done. Pat on the back.
Yeah, tell Mum I'm disciplined. She wouldn't believe it. What's Yeah, so
Well,
who's
you're
the
more
worst? Name and
disciplined.
shame. Who's the worst industry? Who's notoriously awful at bookkeeping?
I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know. They all have their different levels of good and bad, But
Do you have a story where someone's done something absolutely cooked? Like they went to a club and they're cheating on their wife or something, and they labeled it as like, I don't know, cafe.
I've never seen
Networking.
anything like that in my clients. No.
Well, you must be good. How do you get clients or referral? Is it just everyone's like, I've got weekends back now, I can refer you people?
Yeah. So, I'd say that 99% of our work is word of mouth. So I feel like I've been found a couple of times through the Bookkeepers website, the icnzb.org.nz website, and they have a find a bookkeeper thing. So I feel like I've been found over the past, say, 10 years, maybe through that a couple of times.
How'd you get your first client? What was your first, what'd you do? You try to convince them, hey, I'm not an accountant, I'm this new thing called bookkeeping. Well, I don't know what it is.
Oh my God. Well, can I tell you that a bookkeeper has been around longer than an accountant? Bookkeeping has been, as a profession, has been around as long as the oldest profession.
How long is that one? Well, someone's got to keep the books for that, don't they?
Yeah. So, bookkeeping as a task, bookkeeping has been around longer. Yeah.
So people actually search for that. They want to know. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I don't know if they search for it because, I know what bookkeeping is, but when people ask me what's bookkeeping, or they hear the term bookkeeping and they think that we look after books in a bookstore or a library, or we take bets, like a bookie. So, but yeah, bookkeeping. Yeah. So some people don't actually realize what bookkeeping is. And there's more, not common,
misconceptions.
No. Current, so more recent terms like accounts clerk, right? Or accounting technician, or office person or office accounts person, or, so you have a payroll clerk, you have an accounts payable, accounts receivable, debt collection, like they're all different components of the bigger picture bookkeeping. So some people go their entire lives only doing the debtors ledger.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll randomly have people walking behind me. I'm in a lounge. I don't have a fancy thing like you, the background. But okay, so what was your first client? So you decided I'm gonna be one of the oldest professions, and let's go convince someone.
Oh yeah, because that's what I thought to myself. I'll be one of no. So what happened was I was working for a computer company that like built PCs, and they also provided software support. And at the time, they offered NZA Gold, which was a DOS-based software package. Anyway, they got really busy, and I took a job as their receptionist / accounts clerk / office person. And they, as I say, they offered this NZA Gold. One of the guys there was pretty smart programmer-wise, like software writing and that sort of thing. Anyway, and so they offered support to the NZA Gold product. And so through that, I ended up helping some of the clients because, I could use the software. Anyway, after less than a year, I think, maybe 12 to 18 months, like not very long, I was there. They made me redundant because I was the last one on, so I was the last one off. And it never made any sense to me economically because I actually earned them by doing this services, providing these services. I actually earned them more money than my own salary. So I kind of didn't get it, but maybe there was something going on that, I wasn't
They needed
privy
a bookkeeper. That's what they needed. They need someone balancing the books, so they knew that. So they went wrong. But anyways, Kara.
Anyway, and so when they made me redundant, the 2 or 3 people that I'd been helping with the NZA Gold, they didn't have anyone to help them. So I got a new job pretty quickly, like I've never had trouble finding work. But they were like, well, can't you still help us? So I used to spend my evenings and Saturdays. This is before I had a permanent partner or kids or anything, like I used to spend my Saturdays and evenings helping, or straight after work, like I'd go at 5 o'clock and be there at 5:30 or whatever. And so I used to help these people. So that's how I got my first clients, is just working independently with people that needed help, because the company that had been helping them. And then just like once people know that you can do this, like that, I don't know, it just snowballs, And so before you know it, so eventually I had so many, I left my job and I started working as an independent bookkeeper and started my own business.
That's wild. Was it just you then? Like you didn't have to convince anyone that you're going to do it, or your parents, or?
I was a grown-up.
You said 30 years
I was
ago.
an adult. Oh, yeah, well, you were making an assumption of how old I am, right? So I was in my early 20s then.
And was there judgment? Like, you shouldn't be doing this. You should do your safe job. Like, what are you doing?
No.
Yeah, right. Easy. Usually people get that. But I guess you already had money coming in, so they weren't worried about you.
Maybe. I'm just trying to think it was before I was married. I did that before I was married, but I was with my husband.
Oh, was it always easy? Like, was there a hard moment in the business?
Oh yeah, there's been some hard moments. Yeah. I guess, and how do you define hard? Like when you've got clients that want you to do stuff that's not really ethical. Well, personally, I don't find that hard, but it is hard to have those conversations with them and have them go anywhere nice. So for that, for me, that's about knowing the line. Where do I stand with this, and where am I willing to go or not willing to go? Like what's, yeah.
So with the bookkeepers, so let's say young bookkeepers listening, the boss is trying to get them to do something unethical. How do you navigate that chat? And then also, how do you know what is unethical bookkeeping? Like what?
Yeah. Okay. So, but well, if you're new, I strongly recommend you join ICNZB because they have a code of ethics and you can learn the ethics from that if you don't already know them. So rather than trying to navigate it, learn from us, learn from the people that have helped develop the professional body in New Zealand, and lean into it, like it might cost you a little bit of money, but it'll save you a heap of time and effort. So, but like in your own self. So an example would be somebody says you need to claim all the GST on this, and I know that it's entertainment, right? So I know that it was an entertainment bill. They're trying to say, no, it's not. It's, such and such. And I'm like, so with entertainment, you can only claim 50% of it. So therefore you can only claim 50% of the GST. So if they're going to argue the point with me, then I just say to them, then you do it. I'm going to prepare it the way that I know it should be prepared. And if you want to change it and file it yourself, then you do that. You do that. So that's how I would deal with it. And then I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, you work for me, not inland revenue. Right? And I'm like, yeah, man. And my job's to keep you out of the shit with inland revenue.
Damn, mate. Did you keep the client or do you
yeah.
just stack it out? Wow. Okay. So it gets pretty heated, bookkeeping conversations, does it?
Not very often. Not very often. But, it's like, dude, my job's to follow the rules. Like, my job is to keep you, my job is to keep you compliant. My job is to keep you out of trouble. My job is to make sure you file it or help you file on time. I mean, I can't make sure if they're not going to do their bit, but I can help them. Have them ready. Like, my job is to give a good set of clean accounts to the accountant at the end of the year, so that they can do their bit as efficiently as possible. So if you can be really clear in your own mind and know exactly where you stand with what your role is, and you should have a good client engagement that outlines whose responsibilities whose, which you can get a template from ICNZB.
You plug it in. You're plugging so many products here. You just waited for your moment. You didn't put it in the background. You didn't call them ahead of time.
I didn't because I didn't have a chance to, I didn't. But I am certified.
You're certified.
I'm a certified bookkeeper. I haven't set my master bookkeeper test yet.
So how do you get certified? Just pay some money?
Hell no, you have to sit a test.
Oh, so there's tiers.
Yes.
So what's the coolest bookkeeper? What's top tier?
Hey, I'm the coolest.
But you haven't done the master's test.
I'm not a master bookkeeper yet. No, but the test hasn't been available for the last couple of years. So,
did you write the test?
No, I didn't. No, but I was involved in. I've been involved in lots of aspects of it over the years, but no, I didn't write the test.
Damn. I want to see if I might just, can I skip ahead of you and just do the master's thing? How long would it take to smash it out if I was just to do it just to spite you?
Well, you have to be a member and certified for, I should know this, shouldn't I? I have to look it up.
You're fired.
At least 3 years or maybe 5 years, but no, you couldn't. Well, if I really don't bother to do it for the next however many years it takes, because you have to be certified for a certain amount of time. But I think it's 5 years before you're allowed to sit master.
Wow, so you guys taking it real? Who started it? What was the point of, so you guys okay, these accountants, they keep talking down to us. Let's start our own association.
Wasn't it. That so wasn't it. No, so I can tell you, have I got all the names nearby? I should be able to remember everybody. So what happened was a bunch of bookkeepers in Christchurch actually in the end got together and formed the New Zealand Bookkeepers Association. So I can tell you, pretty sure I could tell you who they were. So Mel Morris, Steve Lowry, Vivian Cowie, Tanya Hume, Pip Langford, I'm missing.
I hope it's not in the master's test because it's a fail.
No, it's not. I'm missing another chap. There was another guy, and I can't remember his name. I've got a booklet somewhere here that tells me it all, but it's not nearby enough for
It
me to
doesn't
lay my
matter.
hands.
No
Anyway,
one cares.
there were a bunch of people do though. People
Well, they
do.
care. The
They
people
care.
you're
They
listening.
care. Yeah,
The
if they're
fact you
listening.
started and missed one of them. Yeah,
there
you've
may be
cooked them.
two. There may be even two that I missed, to be honest. But
Are they still with us? Or
yeah.
okay.
Two of them aren't members several of them aren't members anymore, actually. But
they're still living.
you know
what
who
I mean?
you are, and I'm really sorry if I missed you because I haven't read any of the stuff for about 10 years. But we are grateful. The whole of the bookkeeping community in New Zealand is grateful. And basically they got together because there was no support. So there was no support for bookkeepers. There was nowhere to go to get help officially, or even, there wasn't a network of bookkeepers that they could go to when something went wrong. So that's basically why the association was started. So their original tagline was Standards Education Support. So that was back in 2010. They officially registered as an incorporated society, and I was a founding member.
Oh, you're one of the OGs.
I wasn't part of the
you were
founding
the first one that paid.
committee. Yes, I wasn't. Yeah, you have to have a certain number of people to be able to start an incorporated society here. And I think it was 15 at the time. So I'm one of the first, I'm a founding member. Yeah. And
Wow.
I'm actually a life member now too. Yeah.
Do you get discount? Do they send out a photo of you and saying a celebration of 10 years,
They don't send out no, they don't send out a photo. No. But I have got a 5-year badge, and next year we hope to give out 15-year badges.
Okay, random.
Yeah.
So yeah. With these bookkeeping credible masters, bookkeeping masters, what is good? What's best practice of so you come in, you're a business. How do you use the books strategically? What should you do to make sure you're on top of things? What's best practice?
Best practice, reconcile everything would be one thing. Actually reconcile everything. So reconcile the bank, reconcile your debtors statements, reconcile your creditors statements.
How does it not add up? I don't get I just use Henry and I just upload the expenses and I invoice people. Why can't they add 2 + 2? Where does it?
Well, they can, but do they? It's not they can't do it, it's that they don't do it, right?
So they just they just don't fill in the information and they miss some. But
yeah,
what is it
right.
reconciling with? What is it?
The bank statement. The statement, exactly what I just said. So you're reconciling your accounting package to your bank statement, and you're reconciling your debtors account. So if I give you 3 invoices and then I issue you a statement, if you've missed one of them, it wouldn't add up, right? If you've lost one, you got 3, but you lost one or you didn't get one for some reason, then it wouldn't balance to your statement, right? Because you're missing a piece of data.
Yeah, all right. So they're just, because mine just says paid, not paid. I can.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
so when people so let's say you paid me money, and you transposed a figure. So you thought you were paying me $750, but you paid me $570, right? That can be a data error that you made at the bank. You just read it wrong. And so then when I do my debtors, I'd be looking at it going, oh, well, that's not right, because you still owe me more money. So you're just constantly reconciling. Some people, if they were inexperienced or didn't notice, let's say your invoice was made out to Lightroom Company and you paid it from your personal bank account from Ryan Mountain, how would anyone know that Ryan Mountain is Lightroom Company? How would they know that? Unless you referenced it somehow. And then so that money coming into the bank would just be dumped into a suspense account. So when you got your statement, you'd be going, hang on, that's not right because I paid some money and it hasn't come off. So these are the sorts of things that happen all the time. that mean that things don't balance properly. Like like my system should match yours and it doesn't. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess. I guess I'm fortunate the clients have because they're all financial advisors, so I guess they do the numbers right.
No,
But yeah,
that isn't what that means at all.
yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, the people aren't good just because they're a profession. So
Well, no, but a
okay,
financial advisor isn't necessarily a mathematics whiz. Like, that means that they understand how the financial market works.
yeah,
That's a whole different level of knowledge again. Like, I don't even think an accountant would necessarily profess to knowing how the financial market works. Like the inner work, yeah. I mean, they'd have a working knowledge of it, but hands-on knowledge, that's a whole different matter.
So on a side tangent, what about people being ripped off? Like, have you ever caught you find something in the actual financial statements where it doesn't add up, a business partner's taking too much money, clients aren't paying, or someone's skimming the top? Do you ever catch up?
I've never spotted any fraud,
Wow.
but I don't deal in very big business. Like, businesses at that level will usually have an in-house person. I have heard stories though. So I heard a story about a bookkeeper or accounts person who was, so this is where segregation of duties comes into it, right? So this person cleared the letterbox and was responsible for paying the bills. So Inland Revenue were sending reminders to pay PAYE and GST, and the person would make the payment, but the bank account number had been changed to their own bank. And so the boss thought he was paying Inland Revenue because that's what the name said, but the bank account had been changed. And so they were being paid. And so this is where segregation of duties comes in, right? Because so after about 18 months, IRD started to get really tetchy. And that timeline might be a bit off because it's a while since I've heard the story. Anyway, IRD eventually got tetchy and the person left. They just resigned and left. And after they left, they were up for a couple $100,000. And they found a filing box, like the white filing boxes that you fold up and, full of Inland Revenue reminder notices that she'd just been hiding because she cleared the mail. And the boss had never seen them. And so, you can put trust in people, but you really need good processes and segregation of duties and follow best practice to make sure that stuff like that can't happen. Like if he'd simply had a segregation of duty around authorizing things or a two-step authorization process, or someone different clears the mailbox than pays the bills, then you can avoid that stuff. And so something I've seen recently, which I thought was really good, MYB with the online anyway, and it may be with, because Account Right Live is online now as well. It can be. Every time a bank account number gets changed on a supplier, I now get an email from that client file to tell me, and I'm assuming that the boss gets one as well because he has a login to MYB. So it's a level of information sharing that says, hey, someone's changed a bank account. In my experience, it's not actually that they've changed it. They've added a new supplier, but regardless, the data has changed in the file, and we're now getting alerts on stuff like that, which has been instigated, I assume, by MYB around security protocols. So, they can be really clever. They can use their technology to be really clever and really helpful to us to spot stuff like that.
What makes sense? Like I don't come across too many businesses that have been wrecked either by employees or business partners or suppliers or clients. So I'll be also like I don't think people have grasped what actually your job looks like. I know you make things add up, but like So someone calls you and they're like, hey, I don't like doing this anymore, hook us up. And then you just jump in like Batman and then you just start typing numbers.
It's like that,
Like
man.
what happens?
So it is slightly different. Well, no, I mean, it isn't different depending on what software you're using. It's the same job. Different software just applies different technology to deal with it. So basically our job is to make sure that every transaction on the bank statement is reflected in the accounting software, and that it is coded correctly and treated correctly for GST purposes if they're GST registered. So we have to understand the GST rules. So what does it mean if it's exempt? What is it? 15%? There's even a 9% in New Zealand, which I learned in the past 5 years. There's a 0 rated percentage of GST as well. So knowing what they are and how that applies and, what to do there.
What's the 9% one?
9% is the 9% GST on a boarding house income. So long-term accommodation is exempt, like domestic rental properties. So they're exempt long-term. Short-term is business. So like motels, hotels, that's 15% because it's short-term, it's immediate. But mid-term, which is like a boarding house, where it's not a long-term solution, but it's also not just a few nights, like they could be there a few months. That's at 9% on the income. Yeah.
Random. Okay. So yeah, you do the GST, get it right, you get the 9% and the 0. What's
the 15 and the
15,
exempt. And then, so that's our job, is to treat the transaction, process the transactions in the accounting software and handle it correctly.
Are you chasing people up all the time? Are you walking in, grabbing a big box of receipts and just punching it in? Or
we used to do that a lot, but that's changed now with Xero. With Xero coming into the market a while back now, that completely changed the landscape. I still do go to some clients and where necessary pick up stuff that turns up in the mail, like the rates. Lots of my clients, the rates still come in the post, but then we scan them and we load them into the online software now. So, it's changed a lot. But I do still have people that turn up with their little box of goodies or a book or something. Yep.
The oldest. I used to work with a guy that handwrites his emails. So
handwrites emails.
Yeah, the receptionist will print it out.
Oh.
And then he'll read it and he'll handwrite it and she'll type it up and reply as him. Yeah, humans. So okay, so you get the so they upload something on Xero. You're looking at Xero, and then you're being like, oh yeah, 9%, 15%, this, that.
We code it correctly, yeah, basically.
So you just code it
and ensure the GST rate's correct. Yeah. So and we're pretty clever. Like we know that if you go to warehouse stationery, you spend about $50, so it's going to be stationery. But if you spend $400 at warehouse stationery, we're going to be querying, was that a new desk chair? Is it actually stationery at that kind of money? It could be, because you might buy a full set of 4 toner cartridges and that could be up around that sort of money. But generally speaking, our job is to eyeball the source document and then code it correctly.
What stops Xero getting really good at it and coding it correctly? Is it 99% accurate and you're just making 1% adjustments? Or surely it should just do it.
You mean Xero just automatically saying what it's for? How would it? Yeah, I don't. How would it know?
So the purpose. So you sell it. So you go to warehouse stationery. You're like, okay, that's stationery. I don't get it. So there's coding where you're like, this is entertainment.
Yeah. So yeah, how could it? Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. People can set up rules in Xero, and so it depends on whether you're dealing with a cash only product. So you can run just a cash book, and then you can set up heaps of roles and make it automated, and you can do that in Xero, MYB, and MoneyWorks. They all have that functionality. But it's the human beings that ask questions, right? So you could tell, like, so Warehouse Stationery is a good example. So you could tell Xero or MYOB or MoneyWorks, any of them, you could tell them that the rule for Warehouse Stationery is to be coded to stationery, and stationery automatically has 15% on it, right? Now that's fine and dandy as long as they always buy stationery. But what happens if one time they buy coffee? That ain't stationery, that's office supplies, right? And you can buy that at Warehouse Stationery. So your rule is now being tested, and I would say it's being tested. Is the rule fit for purpose all of the time? It's not. So then it's about, and I mean, there's more to it. Like you should always, like I say, our job is to eyeball the source document. So the only way that we would know that it's coffee, not stationery, is because if we saw the docket.
Could you be going like 2 years as a bookkeeper and you're actually crap, but no one knows? Like,
absolutely. You could go 10 years and be crap and no one would find out necessarily.
Perfect job. That's why you could do the master's test. Well,
or at least certified.
What happens? So you basically pay this bookkeeper person to make sure it's right, and you hope they're good enough that it is right. But if they're not, you're cooked. Well, what happens? Like, why does it matter?
Well, because your income tax could be wrong.
And you got to pay a whole lot of stuff. So why does it take so long to realize that it's wrong?
Because people don't review the data. I've actually, this is a really good area to talk about, because this is a thing that I've been trying to come up with an easy answer to people for a long time. But at the end of the day, the business owner, again, like I said earlier on, a business owner knows what's going on in their business, right? So, like I've had an occasion where I've prepared a GST return for a client, given it to them for their review, because, that's best practice. And they've come back to me and said, but what about the vehicle? And I'm like, what vehicle? Turns out they'd paid a deposit for a new car out of their personal bank account. Well, how am I meant to know that? And they'd put it on a term payment plan, And so when you do that, you borrow money. So you've got a loan and you have to pay the loan back with interest. But the actual purchase of the vehicle up front, you've borrowed money and bought a car. So you should get a credit on your GST for the whole amount of the car. But because he hadn't told me that he paid a deposit out of his personal account and never sent me the trade finance documents, I had no idea. But just by looking at his GST return, he's like, but I should be getting a refund this time because I bought a car. So that's where him knowing his business is important, right? And so all I had to do was send me through the paperwork, and then I transacted that, and then we claimed the GST as we should. And he was right. He ended up with a refund. But that's about knowing and actually looking. So how do you know if your bookkeeper's doing a good job? Number one, check your bank balance. Does your bank balance on your bank statement match the bank balance on your balance sheet? 101, And even if you can't understand or don't have any desire to really understand your own balance sheet and what it means and, have an interpretation, if as a business owner, if that isn't an area that you feel confident in, or you just want someone else to do it, you should at the very least be able to check some specific numbers and refer them back to the source. And if you do that, that will tell you whether your bookkeeper's doing a good job.
Yeah. What makes sense. So with the bookkeeping side of things,
yeah,
because we've just stayed on the whole topic this whole time. We're in the home stretch. You've almost made it.
But I could talk about this for hours and hours.
You get fired up, just the numbers. You're like, as soon as it adds up. What's your favorite thing about bookkeeping? Is it that when they don't add up, or they consistently add up, or you solve a mystery that they haven't been able to crack for 3 years?
Yeah, that's a pretty good feeling, solving a mystery. Forensic accounting, or forensic bookkeeping. So no, but my very favorite thing is when I hand over an end of year accounts pack. So I call it an end of year pack. When I hand over a client's end of year pack to the accountant and they have 0 questions, that's my favorite thing.
Sweet spot. Well, how does it even work with charging people? It's like, because it's quite a tricky value proposition that's hard to conceptualize. So you say, hey, come and use me because I'm going to do this GST stuff, and you may
I
or may
never
know
have to do that.
you don't have to pitch people.
No.
What do you charge? Do you charge per hour?
I charge
project?
by the hour, and I can give an estimated price based on how long I think it'll take, but I charge by the hour.
Is there any innovation around that where people pay like how much money they could save by the end of the year and get a percentage or something? Like,
how do you mean?
Well, you're basically, you can increase your hourly rate, but then you're going to come against the value discrepancy where it's quite hard to conceptualize the value you bring. And if you say an hourly rate, it's a cost, you know?
Yeah, but I can save people $3,000 on their GST bill just by doing the job properly. Like why wouldn't you?
There you go. So that's your one liner. You're like, oh, I could save. What's the most you've ever saved? What's your PV?
I don't even know. Sorry. I think one time I helped someone clarify with Inland Revenue an overseas sale, and that saved them $12,000 in GST.
That's fine. It's challenging, like, because you're getting better. You're basically earning less the better you get, because you're faster. 30 years of getting faster. So your hourly rate's like half now because you take half the time.
So I know it seems crazy, right? I get it. But basically, like, I don't do a lot of the day-to-day transacting anymore. You know, like I get called in on the big jobs, you know, when something's gone wrong, if they ring me, you know. Like if I get a referral, say from MoneyWorks, over the years, I'd say that most of the referrals that I've had from MoneyWorks have been because the client can't cope, or the current bookkeeper can't cope, or, you know, something's gone horribly wrong and they just cannot figure it out. So they bring me in to calm the client down and get them over, you know, get them over the hump of whatever the problem is right now. So,
dude, you can make so much project-based stuff. Like, hey, there's this horrible problem. You're in a lot of pain. $10,000.
Oh yeah.
But I'll only charge you if I solve it. And then, boss, you're in and out 1 hour.
Oh, no. If it's that bad, it wouldn't be that quick. Okay, yeah, maybe I never thought about like that. But what I do though, is I charge a higher rate for harder work. So like if I come in as a MoneyWorks consultant, not just a day-to-day bookkeeper, to either set something up new, write reports, or, you know, like if I'm doing that, because that's not bookkeeping, that's consulting, you know, like if I come in as a consultant, then I do charge a higher hourly rate.
Interesting. Well, what would be your advice to the bookkeepers out there that's trying to grow their business? They're only making piddly things per hour to try.
Well, they shouldn't be in the first place. Like they shouldn't devalue the professionalism of bookkeeping by charging, you know, a pathetically small amount of money. But anyway, so to answer your question, what would my advice to them be?
Like, how do you make it a good living out of it? It sounds hard. It depends. Obviously, now you're a consultant rates, but like the amount of hours you have to pump out, and then consistently it's all hour based.
Well, what sort of rate do you think we charge?
I don't know. I have no idea. What is a fair rate for a bookkeeper then? Not you, the consultant.
So the average rate is about $75 to $85 an hour. I think that's a reasonably good.
Well, if you're stacked for 40 hours a week consistently, you're not out trying to promote and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it is a challenging model, I would think. How many like are driving around in Ferraris?
Most people just go to work for an hourly rate, and it's certainly not that high.
It's a great hourly rate. I wonder how the economics work out. Like, so if you're a mum and you're doing part-time and you get 20 hours a week and you're doing 75, you're balling because there's flexibility. You work on your own terms.
That's right. But isn't that the same sort of challenge for all business? Like, what's my pricing model? How do I hit that sweet spot where people just don't even blink to pay it, but I'm getting a good return on investment for my business? So I think that if my advice to people in business in general at the start, my advice would be, you're not in business to earn a wage. You're in business to earn a return on your investment in the business. If you
That's fair.
happen to get paid wages along the way because you're the one doing the doing, well, that's great too. But actually, being in business isn't about, like, if you're going to do this just to earn a wage, then you may as well go get a PAYE job. Because all you're doing is creating it harder for yourself. There's more layers of complexity to deal with and more jobs to do when you're a business owner.
How many hours do you have to spend per client usually on average?
Oh, we've got some that take us an hour a month and others that take us 20 hours a week.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So it
Because
just depends. Yeah.
that would be a hard thing. Like you start and then you got to get 50 clients before you're profitable or whatever. Well, maybe not.
Well, you're profitable right from the get-go because you have hardly any overheads, but it's about how much profit to pay your way in the world, right? Like, how much do you need to live?
Well, how long did it take before you felt, wow, if I didn't do this as a full-time job, like I'm doing good? You know what I mean? How many did it take? 2 years before you had enough clients to be like, actually, this is equivalent?
I don't really remember. What I do remember was that right from the get-go, because I was in, I'm pretty sure it was just before we got married. So like I was in, and we had a mortgage and what have you. So if I remember thinking that I need to be earning this much money because this is what I used to get paid in wages. And it didn't take me long to get that at all. Once people knew that I was available, but I was pretty experienced. Like I was really lucky that I did it as a job for another firm. So I came to, and I'd had a lot of other roles as well. So prior to being self-employed, I was the office manager at a New World store. There's 14,000 product lines to look after, or there was then. And I could hate to think how many there are now. And, 120 staff to pay every week. And like 20 or 40, or however many it was, cash tills to balance every day. So, I had a whole lot of hands-on experience. I worked at a Westpac when I was only 18, something like that, 16. Well, can't even remember now, 17, 18. So I worked in a Westpac. I worked for a shipping company, my range of experience before I even got to being self-employed and I was a stock controller for Just Water, the debtors clerk for Total Records Management, which is part of the Red Eagle Group, Tony Falkenstein. So, I had a really wide variety of experience before I even became a self-employed bookkeeper. So that really helped, I could turn my hand to pretty much anything. I can walk into, I'm not going to say any office, but I have never had one beat me yet. But I'd like to be able to say that I could walk into any office and run the accounts without anyone having to tell me what to do. I'd be able to work it out for myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. That was a good description. I just asked it just because, like you start off and then you get 10 clients and they equate to maybe 20 hours a month and they're $750. So that was all. Or you might get a good client that wants you to do a lot of work. I just imagine coming into the industry fresh would be quite a hard thing. Like with insurance, you come in, you make 2 sales, you could probably eat for the next 4 months,
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, you build your network, play nicely with the accountants, know the line.
Yeah.
Let people know what you're up to. I used to go to a lot of networking events, like morning breakfasts and stuff, where so you get to know people and you get to know what they do and they get to know what you do. And I guess specializing in something helps, like I specialize in the MoneyWorks software, but I can also work with MYB Xero, Quicken, all of them. But also, like I specialize as well in the film and television production accounting space. So, you might want to be the best bookkeeper in electrical motors. I don't know. or mechanics. You might want to be the trade specialist that knows how all the different apps and add-ons link into SAM, which is one of the automotive management softwares, and then how that links into Xero or how that links into MYB. Like, you pick your space that you want to specialize in and then just go for that. Because if you can be the specialist in something, then you are the authority and people will come because you're the best result. So, yeah. And find a mentor. Bookkeepers are naturally people that want to help out. We in our community, we have community over collaboration. That is very present. If you go to a bookkeeper and ask for help, they will help you without a doubt. Well, I've never struck one that wouldn't. Don't ask them how to make their business, because that's their own business aptitude, but they'll certainly help you with, if you've got a problem with MYB, for example, or a problem with Xero, or you can't work out how to do a debtor refund in a piece of software or something like that, just ask and they'll help. Like in ICNZB, they've got a closed Facebook page for members, and you can ask for help in there on specific topics as well. We're a really great community like that. So if you're new to bookkeeping, go along to your local meeting and meet the bookkeepers in your region and come to conference. And, you'll find that you've got this massive community that's there to help you out should you have a problem.
Look at that. We're quick bookkeepers, though. There's such a neglected. I mean, I didn't really know about it until I made a list of people to call, and then you guys came on. I was like, what's that? But anyway, you've done a podcast, so thanks for coming on.
Okay, you're more than welcome. I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, "You work for me, not inland revenue." Right? And I'm like, yeah, man, and my job's to keep you out of the shit with inland revenue.
Damn, mate. Did you keep the client, or do you just stack it out? Wow, okay. So It gets pretty heated, bookkeeping conversations.
Not very often. Not very often. But, it's like, dude, my job's to follow the rules. Like, my job is to keep you, my job is to keep you compliant. My job is to keep you out of trouble. My job is to make sure you file it or help you file on time. I mean, I can't make sure if they're not going to do their bit, but I can help them. Have them ready. Like, my job is to give a good set of clean accounts to the accountant at the end of the year so that they can do their bit as efficiently as possible. I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, "You work for me, not inland revenue." Right? And I'm like, yeah, man, and my job's to keep you out of the shit with inland revenue.
Damn, mate. Did you keep the client, or do you just stack it out? Wow, okay. So It gets pretty heated, bookkeeping conversations.
Not very often. Not very often. But, it's like, dude, my job's to follow the rules. Like, my job is to keep you, my job is to keep you compliant. My job is to keep you out of trouble. My job is to make sure you file it or help you file on time. I mean, I can't make sure if they're not going to do their bit, but I can help them. Have them ready. Like, my job is to give a good set of clean accounts to the accountant at the end of the year so that they can do their bit as efficiently as possible. I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, "You work for me, not inland revenue." Right? And I'm like, yeah, man, and my job's to keep you out of the shit with inland revenue.
Damn, mate. Did you keep the client, or do you just stack it out? Wow, okay. So It gets pretty heated, bookkeeping conversations.
Not very often. Not very often. But, it's like, dude, my job's to follow the rules. Like, my job is to keep you, my job is to keep you compliant. My job is to keep you out of trouble. My job is to make sure you file it or help you file on time. I mean, I can't make sure if they're not going to do their bit, but I can help them. Have them ready. Like, my job is to give a good set of clean accounts to the accountant at the end of the year so that they can do their bit as efficiently as possible. I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, "You work for me, not inland revenue." Right? And I'm like, yeah, man, and my job's to keep you out of the shit with inland revenue.
Damn, mate. Did you keep the client, or do you just stack it out? Wow, okay. So It gets pretty heated, bookkeeping conversations. Not
very often. Not very often. But, it's like, dude, my job's to follow the rules. Like my job is to keep you, my job is to keep you compliant. My job is to keep you out of trouble. My job is to make sure you file or help you file on time. I mean, I can't make sure if they're not going to do their bit, but I can help them, have them ready. Like my job is to give a good set of clean accounts to the accountant at the end of the year so that they can do their bit as efficiently as possible. I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, "You work for me, not Inland Revenue." Right? And I'm like, yeah, man, and my job's to keep you out of the shit with Inland Revenue.
Damn, mate. Did you keep the client, or do
Yeah.
you
Oh,
just
yeah.
stack it out? Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
it gets pretty heated, bookkeeping conversations, does it?
Oh, not very often. Not very often. But, it's like, dude, my job's to follow the rules. Like my job is to keep you, my job is to keep you compliant. My job is to keep you out of trouble. My job is to make sure you file or help you file on time. I mean, I can't make sure if they're not going to do their bit, but I can help them, have them ready. Like my job is to give a good set of clean accounts to the accountant at the end of the year so that they can do their bit as efficiently as possible. I've had someone literally screaming down the phone at me saying, "You work for me, not Inland Revenue." Right? And I'm like, yeah, man, and my job's to keep you out of the shit with Inland Revenue.
Damn, mate. Did you keep the client, or do
Yeah.
you
Oh,
just
yeah.
stack it out? Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
it gets pretty heated, bookkeeping conversations, does it?
Oh, not very often. Not very often. But, it's like, dude, my job's to follow the rules. Like my job is to keep you, my job is to keep you compliant. My job is to keep you out of trouble. My job is to make sure you file or help you file on time. I mean, I can't make sure if they're not going to do their bit, but I can help them, have them ready. Like my job is to give a good set of clean accounts to the accountant at the end of the year so that they can do their bit as efficiently as possible.